Alas, I am having to start from scratch again now. But a woman of my experience doesn't have to worry too much about that. And sure enough, it doesn't take me long to have compiled a list of ideas that will get me closer to my goal of seeing both James and Clarissa out of work soon. As I reread the list and internally deliberate which methods of revenge are the most practical for me, given my current status, I feel a familiar feeling rising up inside me. It's excitement. I'm finally getting to be the woman I have always been again. And very soon, James and Clarissa are going to find out who I really am. God help them when they do. Chapter 36. Present Day. After my fun at Clarissa's house the other night, it's time to hit her where it really hurts, which is in the workplace where she is the boss. She's been coy with me in the office this morning, no doubt wary after I almost caught her with my boyfriend, but I don't plan to be as cautious with her. I'm going to be bold, aggressive and decisive, and now I have the perfect time to do it. It's lunchtime, and Kathy has just announced that the charity cake sale she has helped organise is now commencing in the kitchen, and that all staff are to make their way to that room so that funds can be raised for a good cause. Everybody gets out of their seats and makes their way to the kitchen eagerly, although it's more likely they are looking forward to eating cake rather than giving up their money. But I linger back for a few moments, because the office floor clearing out gives me my chance to put my plan into action. I make sure that Clarissa is leaving her desk, along with everybody else, and once I see that she has, I tell Kathy I will join her in the kitchen shortly, but that I need to visit the ladies' room first. But I'm not going to the toilet at all, and as all my colleagues go one way, I go the other. Walking down to the opposite end of the office where the accounts team sit, I make sure every member of the finance team is out of sight before I walk over to the grey money box that sits on the side of the finance manager's desk. It's the money box that is used to store all the funds that this office raises for charity after they have been collected and counted, and it contains a sizable sum, considering how often my company does some fundraising. I pick the money box up, feeling the weight of it, as well as hearing the money inside it moving against the metal casing that surrounds it. I know exactly how much cash is in here, because the total was mentioned in a recent email that went to everybody's inbox, and I know that it's due to be deposited with our chosen charities at the end of the week. I also know that it's not supposed to go missing from this department at any time, for any reason. But it's about to go missing now, and although it will still get to the charities it needs to get to in the end, it's about to take a little detour. It's about to end up somewhere it doesn't belong. Creeping back through the deserted office, I can hear the commotion in the kitchen as the rest of my colleagues tuck into their cakes and make their donations. But I stay away from all that, and instead go into Clarissa's office. That's where I put the money box back down again, hiding it in the bottom drawer of her pedestal, and making it look as if she has taken it, which is against company policy, and will definitely see her face some uncomfortable questions when it is discovered. I don't think it will take long for it to be discovered either, but until then I have to carry on as if everything is normal, so I join my colleagues in the kitchen and purchase 2 cupcakes, as well as donating £10 to a good cause. Kathy is in her element as she hands out the baked goods and collects the cash, while Clarissa stands at the back of the room, chewing on a brownie and making small talk with one of the other managers. But I notice her look at me a moment later, and as our eyes meet across the crowded room, I see her smile weakly at me. It's a subtle thing, but it's a sign that she sees me differently now. I'm no longer just a lowly colleague of hers. I'm the lowly colleague who visited her home and tried to be friendly. I wonder if she is feeling guilty about what she is doing behind my back now. If she wasn't before, then she must be after my little performance. How awful of her to be sleeping with the boyfriend of a lovely woman like me. I bet she sees me as just a poor, innocent victim in all of this. But she's wrong, and pretty soon she will be the victim. Just as soon as that money is discovered in her possession and she is marched into a meeting room to discuss how it got there. It actually takes longer than I thought it would for the finance manager to notice the money is missing. But when he does, I can see a little commotion over by the accountant's desks, and I suspect it won't take long now until a formal search gets underway. That search begins in the form of an email from HR, in which it is noted that the money is missing, and that whoever has taken it should return it immediately and explain their actions to avoid further problems. "Can you believe this?" Kathy asks me after she has read the email. "Who do you think took it?" "No idea," I reply with a shrug, before glancing over at Clarissa, who seems to be on a business call, oblivious to the fact that she is in possession of the money that several of her colleagues in this office are now looking for. Another couple of hours pass by, but unsurprisingly, nobody comes forward to admit that they have taken the money. So what happens next is pretty straightforward. HR orders a search of everybody's desk, needing to do it before home time so that the money can't leave the premises without being found first. There are several moans and groans around the office as people react to the news that they are going to have their pedestals, pockets, and other possessions searched, and I make sure to fake my annoyance at that fact too. But secretly, I'm just counting down the minutes now until Clarissa is caught. I stand by patiently as my things are searched, as does Kathy, before the HR manager and the finance manager move on to other desks. It's no surprise that they leave Clarissa's desk until last, because surely no one suspects the boss of stealing the money. But after a fruitless search thus far, the investigators have to be seen to be treating all employees fairly, so they enter Clarissa's office and ask her to pause her work for a moment, all the while apologising for the intrusion and assuring her that they will be out of her way in a moment. But I know it won't be as simple as that, and as I sit at my desk and watch the events across the office unfold, I hear Kathy gasp behind me. That's because she has seen what the HR manager has just found in Clarissa's drawer. It's the money. Oh dear, it looks like our boss is in trouble. Chapter 37. Present day. After the surprise of events in the office today, I decided to cause another one when I went home and saw James and asked him if he wanted to go out for food and drinks with me this evening. It was a surprise for him, because I'm always the one turning down his suggestions to go out, particularly on a weeknight. But this time it was me who brought up the idea, and I'm pleased to say that my boyfriend agreed to it. I've assured him that I'll do the driving, so he can have a couple more drinks than me, and he's happy enough with that plan, as we leave the house and head to the pub about 3 miles away from home. I make small talk with him on the way, chatting about fairly insignificant things, although I plan on changing that when we get to the pub and sit down at our table. That's because I have something very juicy to talk to him about, but I want to be able to gauge his honest reaction to that topic when I do, so I need to be able to see him clearly, which means that I'll wait until we reach our destination. But I feel giddy as I drive us there, because after the events in the office today, I'm feeling more and more like the woman I used to be. And it is certainly a sweet feeling. After parking up and entering the pub, I take a seat at a lovely table by an open fire, as James goes over to the bar to request a couple of menus. "This is nice," I say to him when he gets back, and we both peruse our food options in this pleasant setting. "I told you we should do this kind of thing more often," James replies, and I can't argue with him there. He is always telling me that, and I usually ignore him. But it is nice to be out, although not in the traditional sense of it being good to have a change of scene or socialise with a partner. It's in the sense that being here this evening is just the next part of my plan against the 2 people who have betrayed me. I got Clarissa earlier, and tonight I'm going to get James. But first, it's time to focus on my boss. "Oh my God, I almost forgot to tell you. You'll never guess what happened at work today," I say, after James and I have ordered our food and drinks with the barman and handed back our menus. "What?" "Clarissa got suspended." I notice that my boyfriend seems surprised by that news, although I'm aware that he could just be acting, because Clarissa might already have told him about her bad day in the office, if they are as close to each other as I know them to be. "What? What happened?" "She'd stolen money that we raised for charity." "No way." "Yeah, it was found in her drawer. She denied it, of course, but she's been suspended and it doesn't look good." "I don't get it. Why would she steal money? She gets paid enough, right?" "Yeah." "I don't know. Maybe she thought she'd get away with it. Nobody would ever suspect the boss, I suppose." James does seem surprised by what I've told him, but for a man as good at acting as he is, I still can't be sure if he is just hearing about all of this for the first time, or if Clarissa has already told him about it. Either way, I've continued to play my part well. The one in which I'm just the girlfriend, telling her boyfriend about her dramatic day in the office. Whether he has already heard this story or not, the main thing is that he will have no idea that I am the instigator of the crime that shocked my workplace today. So what happens now, James asks me, as the barman serves us our first drinks, and he takes a sip of his lager. I twirl the straw around in my lemonade because I'm the designated driver, so I'm on my best behaviour, before answering him. I'm not sure. I guess she'll have to try and convince HR that she didn't take it. But it was in her drawer, so I'm not sure how she's going to do that. But she won't be sacked, right? I mean, she's the boss. I don't know. But if she stole, then she should be subject to the same rules as everybody else, I suppose. Plus, she didn't just steal from the company, she stole from charity. I'm laying it on thick, doing my best to make it sound like Clarissa is a truly terrible woman who is capable of stealing money destined for people that need it a whole lot more than she does. And it's done with the intention of making James feel as bad as possible about the fact that he has chosen to cheat on me with this woman. He's cheating on me with a thief. He must be feeling really good about his life choices right now. It's funny, isn't it, I add, as I see our plates of food being carried out from the kitchen in the direction of our table. You think you know somebody, and then something like this happens. I shrug to show James that I was wrong about Clarissa, and she obviously isn't the person I believed her to be, and I leave him to ruminate on that as we receive our food and tuck in. I wonder if he is now starting to doubt choosing to be with Clarissa himself, because while he might have found her attractive in the beginning, there surely isn't anything attractive about someone stealing money that doesn't belong to them. Could this be enough for him to stop what he is doing with her and return to being the faithful boyfriend? I don't really care even if it is, because as far as I'm concerned, the damage has been done, and nothing is going to stop the plan I have already put into motion. We're halfway through our meal when I suggest we get another drink, and James is happy to agree. So I order him another lager while getting a second lemonade for myself. I knew he wouldn't turn down the chance at another beer, and I'm counting on him not turning down the chance for a third after our meal either. Sure enough, when our empty plates are collected and the pair of us sit back with full bellies and a satisfied smile on our faces, he is thrilled with my idea of getting one more drink. I'm glad we came out tonight, James muses when he receives his third alcoholic drink of the evening. Thanks for suggesting it, and thanks for driving. I'll do it next time, or we can get a taxi. Sounds good, I say as I finish my second lemonade and pretend to be thrilled about having a third one to start. I'm not thirsty at all now, and I'd happily get out of here and go home. But I need James to have one more drink to be sure that my plan will work. So I will sit here patiently until he has finished. But I don't have to wait until we are leaving to spring my surprise on him, and it's probably best if I start laying the foundations of it now. Putting a hand to my stomach, I grimace slightly, not enough to cause too much concern from my boyfriend, but enough for him to notice and ask me if everything is all right. Yeah, I'm fine, I say, but I make it look like I'm not entirely convinced of that, and a few minutes later I hold my stomach again. What is it? James asks me, after he has just taken another long sip of his beer. I'm not sure. I've got a bit of a stomach ache, I tell him. I'll finish this and we'll get going, James says, and he picks up his glass again, which is exactly what I want him to keep doing. The more he drinks, the better. I have purposely stopped drinking my own drink now, feigning loss of interest in it, and instead showing more and more signs of discomfort. I think I need to go to the toilet, I say, getting up gingerly from my seat and looking for the nearest restroom. Are you sure you're okay? James asks me, and I nod to him before rushing away from our table towards the toilets, very much like somebody who needs to get inside a cubicle quickly. I make it to the toilets in good time, and that's where I can stop pretending that I'm ill, and instead focus on keeping my plan moving along. After checking that no one else is in this restroom with me, I take out the mobile phone in my pocket, but crucially, it's not my regular mobile phone. Instead, it's the phone I purchased on my lunch break today. One of these old, cheap mobiles from those dodgy stores, and with a pay-as-you-go SIM card to go with it. This means this phone isn't registered to my name, and that means I can make phone calls to the police on it without worrying about them knowing my real identity. I stand in the locked toilet cubicle with the phone pressed to my ear, and after dialing 999, it doesn't take long for an operator to answer my call. I request the assistance of the police, and when I am asked what I need them for, I give them my explanation. I've just been drinking in the George and Lion pub on Smith Road, and I've noticed a man in there who has had several drinks this evening getting behind the wheel of his car. I don't mean to be a busybody, but he really shouldn't be driving because he must be over the limit, and I'd hate for him to cause an accident. Do you have the vehicle's registration number? Yes, I do. I wrote it down, I reply, before pretending to read it back to the operator, even though I already know it from memory, because it is the car that I drove here this evening. And your name is? The operator asks me, after I have provided enough information for them to send a police car out onto the roads to investigate. Oh, I really don't want to give my name, because I don't want to get in any trouble, I reply timidly. I'm just trying to do the right thing. The car was headed east. Goodbye. With that, I hang up and take a deep breath, hoping that what I have just done has worked, and that a police car will shortly be pulling over the vehicle that I have just reported as being driven by a drunk driver. But for that to happen, I need to not only get that car back out on the road, but convince James that he needs to be the one behind the wheel. So I leave the cubicle and return to our table in the pub, where I let James know that I'm still not feeling well and don't think I'll be able to drive us home after all. Well, I can't drive, I'll be over the limit, he tells me, looking annoyed at this turn of events, before realising that it's not my fault for getting ill, so he shouldn't be irritated with me. We'll have to get a taxi, I suggest, before wincing at a fake stomach cramp that I'm hoping will make my boyfriend feel bad about not being able to get me home quicker than that, even though it takes ages to get one out here. I guess, James says as he takes out his mobile to call that taxi, but I continue to grimace and hold my stomach before looking at him hopelessly and asking him to do me a favour. Do you think you could just drive? I ask. I don't know if I can wait for a taxi. It's only a couple of miles, and the roads will be quiet. James does not look sure about that at all, but I keep grimacing and appearing to be in serious pain, until he reluctantly agrees that he could probably get away with it. Are you sure? I ask, pretending to be nervous about that plan, but James reassures me that it will be fine. Yeah, I had a meal with my drink, so that will have soaked up the alcohol, he tells me, although I'm not sure who he's trying to convince more, me or himself. But I was counting on him offering to drive us both home, because I know he has done it before a couple of times when he was likely to have been a little over the limit, and now that he has, I feel like my plan really has a good chance of working. All I need now is that police car to find us driving out on these roads before we make it back to our house, because if it does, James will be breathalyzed, and he will be found to be drink driving. And then he will be in a lot of trouble. I make it to our car and slide into the passenger seat, still holding my stomach and letting my uncomfortable feelings be known, while James starts the engine beside me and puts the car into motion. He winds down his window as he drives us out of the pub car park, perhaps to get some fresh air and help sober himself up a little. But I think he's going to need more than that in a moment. But we're halfway home when I begin to worry that the police car might not have responded to my anonymous call about a drunk driver in the area, because I haven't seen any cars out on patrol since we left the pub. If we make it home without encountering one, then tonight will have been a waste of time, and I'll have to try something else. But just before we can reach the last turning that will take us off the main road and into the quiet residential street where our home is located, I see the blue flashing lights in my wing mirror. James sees them too, and when he does, he lets out a loud expletive to signal his panic. "What the hell is a police car doing around here at this time?" he asks me, his voice rising as the fear of what might be about to happen sets in. "I don't know," I say, as I keep my eyes on the mirrors. "Do you think they want to pull you over?" "I don't know," James snaps back, but it's obvious that they do because the police car doesn't overtake us and only comes to a stop when James has brought his own vehicle to a halt. I watch as James squirms in the driver's seat beside me and takes several deep breaths before the police officer approaches the window and asks him where he is going tonight. James plays it casual and says we are just driving home, but when the officer asks where we have just been, James lies and says we have been visiting his parents. I wonder if the police officer will buy it, but after my earlier phone call I'm guessing not, and sure enough, the officer asks James if he has been drinking this evening. James says he has had 1 or 2, which sounds better than 3, I suppose, before the officer asks him to step outside the vehicle and take a test. James does his best to reassure the officer that he is sober and fit to drive, but the officer says he won't ask nicely again, so James has no choice but to get out. I try to get out too, because I certainly don't want to miss all the fun, but the officer asks me to stay in my vehicle, so I do as I'm told, content with knowing that very soon I will be learning that James is being arrested, and I'll have to drive myself home after all. Sure enough, James appears a moment later by my window, looking very remorseful, and he informs me that he has to go with the police. He asks if I'll be okay to get home by myself, and while I offer to accompany him to the station, he tells me he'll be okay and he'll be back soon. It's a sobering sight to see my boyfriend being put into the back of a police car. But it was my end goal when I came up with this plan, so I can't complain. All I can do now is drive home alone, and I do just that, no longer having to fake a mysterious stomach bug, and instead thinking about how today has been quite a success. I've given both James and Clarissa serious problems. The only thing they don't know yet is that I'm the one who caused them. But they will do soon enough, and I can't wait to see the looks on their faces when they find out. Chapter 38. Present Day. Clarissa's desk has sat empty ever since I arrived at the office today and took a seat at my own, and by the sounds of things, it's going to stay that way for a little while yet. My boss is still suspended, pending the investigation into the stolen charity money, and the workplace is certainly a hive of gossip, as the workers who remain at their workstations speculate on what might happen next. Of course, HR wouldn't approve of such gossip, so everybody is having to do their best to be discreet about it, although some are better at it than others. Kathy, for one, could certainly do with being a little more subtle. "Can you imagine what she's going through right now?" she asks me rather loudly, after she has again failed to stop gossiping and do some actual work at her desk. The humiliation, the shame, the fear for her job. "Yeah, it's pretty bad," I reply rather matter-of-factly, happy to keep fueling Kathy's claims. "But don't feel too sorry for her. She did steal money after all." "I know, but I can't believe it, can you?" "Not really, but I guess nobody can expect these kinds of things until they happen. I mean, I never really liked her as a boss, but I didn't think she was a bad person. Certainly not one capable of stealing, anyway, did you?" I shake my head, playing my part of the confused colleague just as well as everybody else here. All the employees in this office seem stunned by what Clarissa has done, but the evidence doesn't lie, and it doesn't look good for our suspended boss. I'm hoping that she will be relieved of her duties and have to seek employment elsewhere once the investigation concludes, because while that might seem harsh, I feel like it is nothing less than she deserves after what she has done to me. She screwed up my relationship, so I've screwed up her way of making money. An eye for an eye and all that. But I'm not done with her yet, not by a long way, just like I'm not done with James. I haven't heard from my boyfriend today, and the last time I did was when I dropped him off at his office this morning. Being no longer able to drive after his arrest last night, James relies on me now to get him to work. But I'm wondering how long that will be the case. Because just like with Clarissa's behaviour, I have a feeling his employers won't take too kindly to what he has done. James spent several hours at the police station last night, and it was the early hours of the morning by the time an officer dropped him back at our front door. I had stayed up, pretending to be the worried partner, but really it was just because I had been far too excited to sleep. How could I close my eyes when I had so much adrenaline running through my body after tricking my cheating boyfriend into being arrested for drink driving? My plan had worked perfectly, just like my plan for Clarissa worked too. and that was why I had sat up all night with a big grin on my face, waiting for James to get home. When he did, he was unsurprisingly sleepy and very sheepish about what had happened, and he just wanted to get into bed and get a few hours of rest before getting up for work again. But I hadn't allowed him that time, instead keeping him awake with a multitude of questions, like what happened to him at the police station and what was going to happen next. By the sounds of things, it didn't sound promising, and as I dropped James off at work this morning, he was worried about something else. He was worried that his boss would suspend him too. Fingers crossed. I've been checking my phone regularly for updates from him, but so far there haven't been any, so maybe things have worked out better for him than they have for Clarissa. But I'd be surprised, because I know James needs to be able to drive in his job, because there are a lot of external meetings with clients at various offices in the region, and without a car, he will struggle to be able to get to them all. That will impact on his capability to do his job, and therefore impact on the company who pay him to do that job. With that in mind, I have a feeling his employers will be taking a very dim view of his recent drink-driving arrest. My phone rings 10 minutes later, and when I see that it is James calling me, I get up from my desk and walk away from Kathy and the rest of my colleagues, who might be able to overhear me. I haven't told any of them about what happened to James last night after we left the pub, because that is what most people would do. They would keep things like this to themselves until they knew what the police were going to do next. But as I answer the phone and hear my boyfriend's voice, it seems his employers have decided what they are going to do next. "They're suspending me," he cries down the phone. "They say I can't do my job properly without a licence, plus an arrest such as this one goes against what they deem acceptable behaviour from their employees." "OK, just calm down a minute." "How can I calm down? I'm going to lose my job." I nibble on my lip as I do my best to stifle a laugh, but it really is music to my ears to hear my cheating partner so worked up. He's suffering now, just like Clarissa, and I'm loving every minute of it. They definitely picked the wrong person to mess with. But I'm not done with either of them yet, and with that in mind, I need to go about getting the next part of my plan in motion. "God, what is it with people being suspended lately?" I say. "What do you mean?" "Clarissa is still off work too. I guess she might not be coming back." I'm purposely letting James know that his mistress is not at work right now, just in case he doesn't know it, because that way he might be tempted to go to her house while he knows I am still occupied at the office. The pair of them are so predictable, and now that neither of them have a workplace to be at during the day, I suspect they might find some comfort in each other's arms. "What are you going to do now?" I asked James. "Do you want me to come and pick you up from work?" "No, it's okay, I'll get a taxi," he tells me, and I smile, because I know he is lying to me. There's no way he's going home to an empty house, not when there's still half a day where I'm out of the way. He's going to go to her place, but I think I'm going to join him. Chapter 39. Present Day. I've arrived at Clarissa's house again, just like I did on the night I went in and sat on her sofa to talk to her while James was hiding somewhere upstairs. But this time I won't be so discreet. I won't be knocking on the door, and I won't be pretending like I'm oblivious to what the pair of them are up to. Instead, I'm going to march right in and catch them both at it. And then I'm going to tell them exactly what I have done to them. But most tantalisingly of all, I'll then tell them what is going to happen next. I'm definitely going to enjoy that bit. Striding confidently up my boss's driveway, I reach out for the front door handle and enter the house as casually as if I own the place. It would have been annoying if the door was locked, because then I would have had to break and enter, but as it is, I am in the hallway now, and I still have the element of surprise on my side. "James, where are you? I know you're here." My voice is loud in the otherwise quiet home, but it doesn't take long for more noise to follow it, and I hear the sound of footsteps above my head, which I'm guessing are coming from the bedroom. I smirk to myself as I head for the staircase, not wanting to give the two people up there the chance to get themselves fully clothed before I arrive on the scene and see what they were doing. As I reach the upstairs landing, I see one of the doors up here open, and when it does, Clarissa emerges from inside the room, once again wearing that dressing gown that she was wearing the last time I was here. It's handy how she clearly keeps it close to the bed, so she can grab it whenever she gets interrupted by something. But this interruption is a lot different to the time I knocked on her door that Friday night. "Mary, what the hell?" My boss is stunned to see me, as she might well be. "Hey, Clarissa. How's it going?" "What do you think you're doing? Why are you in my house?" "Oh, I think you know exactly why I am here, so you can stop playing games. Where is he?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about James, my boyfriend. I know he's here." "Is he in there with you?" "James, are you in the bedroom? You can come out, the game's already up, mate." I peer past Clarissa and into the dark room, and sure enough, it only takes a moment for my sheepish boyfriend to appear in the doorway behind my boss. I notice that he is wearing a shirt, unlike the last time I saw him here, when he was walking around the kitchen topless, but he seems to be missing his trousers. And I'm just relieved his boxer shorts seem to still be on, otherwise he really would have some explaining to do. "Mary," he mumbles when he sees me standing at the top of the staircase. "Oh, hi, James. Nice to see you. Care to tell me what you're doing here?" James looks as confused as Clarissa does, but I spare them having to give me some ridiculous story about why they are in a bedroom together, and instead give them a better option. "Never mind. I think I can work it out. How about you both put on a few more clothes and come and join me downstairs?" With that, I head back down the stairs and go into the living room, nonchalantly walking around this home as if I have not just intruded on it. The fact I have been here before means I know exactly where I am going, and I see the familiar living room when I enter it, the one in which I shared a rather awkward drink with Clarissa, the one where she had to pretend like she had no love life to report on, rather than admit she had a man in her bed at that very moment, a man who already belonged to me. It takes 5 minutes for the homeowner and her lover to join me in the living room, and when they do, I smile at both James and Clarissa to disarm them a little, and make them even more confused about what is going on here. "Mary, let me explain," James tries, but I put my hand up to let him know to not even bother going down that route. "Save it for someone who cares," I tell him, before instructing him to take a seat on the opposing sofa. He does as he's told, but Clarissa remains standing, and as much as she is probably nervous right now, I'm sure there is a big part of her that still feels like she has some semblance of control here, because this is still her house. But it's about time I snuffed that out, and really show her who is boss around here. "Mary, you can't just come into my house. This is trespassing. I could call the police," Clarissa cries, but I just laugh at that and stay seated on her sofa. "I think having a trespasser is the least of your worries," I tell her. "You see, I know what you two have been doing, and I've known for quite some time," I begin. "You have?" James asks, looking so shocked, as if he can't quite believe that he really isn't as good at being a man of mystery as he obviously thought he was. "Yep," I snap back. "The only thing I don't know is how long it's been going on. Care to enlighten me?" James and Clarissa share a nervous glance before either of them speak, so I guess that isn't something they are willing to divulge. Never mind. The important thing is that I found out about you two and your dirty little secret, and once I did, I was able to have some fun. You see, you're not the only ones who have a secret. "What do you mean?" Clarissa asks me, and I'm glad she did. "Let's just say that I'm not exactly who you think I am," I say rather ominously. "And let's just say that out of all of the women around here you two could have betrayed, you picked the worst one." "Mary, I'm sorry," James tries again, but his attempts at apologising are just making him look more pathetic with each turn. "Don't say sorry again," I tell my boyfriend. Or should that be ex-boyfriend? Because that's where this is heading. "I don't want to hear that word because you're not going to hear it from me either." "What do you have to apologise for?" James asks. "Breaking into my house, for one," Clarissa butts in, and I nod my head in approval at her timing. But she is wrong, of course, because she always is. "I have to confess that there are a few things I have done to you that could be considered to be as bad as what you have done to me," I say, rather whimsically, "but I'm sure you can figure it out, if you think about it hard enough." I wait for the two lovers to do just that, and it doesn't take long for it to dawn on them what I have been up to behind their backs. "You put that money in my drawer," Clarissa cries, and I smile as she is filled with rage. But it's James who has the most satisfying reaction of all, putting his hand to his mouth as if to cover up the shock he is feeling after figuring out that I might be the one who cost him his job too. "You didn't," he says, but I nod my head to let him know that I did. "But how?" "It was easy, really. I just faked being ill so you had to drive, and then all I had to do was tip off the police that there was a drunk driver in the area, and I knew they would rush out to investigate." "You crazy bitch! What have you done?" James cries, and he gets up from the sofa, making me think for a second that he might be about to go for me. But just in case either he or Clarissa is thinking about trying to harm me, I decide to let them know that I would advise against it. "Just calm down and take a minute, or things could get a whole lot worse for you," I tell my boyfriend as he remains standing beside Clarissa, who looks just as angry as him and almost as intimidating despite her smaller stature. Bless him, James never was the biggest man. He certainly looks very small right now. "What are you talking about?" Clarissa asks me. "I'm talking about the fact that I'm not finished with either of you two yet," I reply. "Not by a long way." "You're a psycho," my boss tells me, which surely has to be the worst thing she has ever called me since she offered me a job 18 months ago. "No, I'm a woman who has been backstabbed by two people I should have been able to trust. That's why I've done what I have. And it's why there are other things coming for you, unless you do as I say." "What do you mean?" James asks me, looking less angry now and just more afraid. "You know I've cost you both your jobs," I say with a big smile on my face. "But you need to know that you can't breathe a word of it to anyone, because if you do, something much worse will happen to you. Believe me when I say that. That's because I have put several more plans into place, and I won't hesitate to enact them unless you do as I say. But if I do, losing your jobs will be the least of your worries." I can tell by the look on both James and Clarissa's face that they do believe me, and that makes me feel confident enough to get up from the sofa and make my way to the door. But before I go, I have one more thing to tell them to ensure that they definitely don't go talking to the police about me. "I know it might sound funny, but you should consider yourselves lucky," I say, as I stare at the two losers before me. "The last guy who messed up with me ended up a lot worse off than you two have. At least you're still breathing." With that, I stride out of the room and head for the front door, feeling satisfied that my work here is done. James and Clarissa have lost their jobs, but they are also going to be living in fear of future reprisals if they tell anybody what I have done. I don't actually have anything else planned for them if they did tell anybody, so they are not in anywhere near as much danger as I have just made them believe they are. But they don't need to know that. They just need to keep their mouths shut and accept that on this occasion they have lost. They messed with the wrong woman. And now that woman is walking out of here as the winner. But as I open the door, I suddenly get the feeling that something isn't right. Not only are the two people behind me in the house not coming after me to try and stop me or ask me more questions, but there is an eerie silence outside the property too, as if everything has come to a stop, and I'm the only one moving now. That's when I see the police car parked on the street outside, and by the time I have noticed the second one, I realise that my fate is already sealed. But it's the presence of the third car that really lets me know I am screwed, because that is the nearest vehicle parked outside Clarissa's house. And when the two officers get out of it, I realise that they are too close for me to try and outrun them. But just in case, I turn around and look back into the house, wondering if there is some way I can escape through the rear of the property. But when I do, I see James and Clarissa standing in the hallway, not only blocking my one and only chance at an exit, but doing something much worse than that. They are smiling at me. They are smiling as if they are the ones who have won. Chapter 40. Present day. Clarissa. It's funny because Mary thought she was the dangerous one. But she had no idea what kind of a woman I really am. It all started so innocently when Mary came to me for a job interview. I took her word for it that she was who she told me she was, because why wouldn't I? She actually impressed me in that interview, not coming across as particularly confident, but demonstrating enough to make me think that she would be a good fit for the role I was hiring for. Of course, no employer worth their salt would just hire somebody without first checking the candidate's references, so I had assured Mary that the job would be hers, but only if her reference checked out. Then I had called the number on Mary's CV, expecting to speak to a man called Tom, who she apparently used to work for in another admin position in a different part of the country. But that's where things got weird. The guy I spoke to was hardly convincing when I asked him about Mary, struggling to answer even the most basic of questions about her, and that made me suspicious that the reference might not have been as honest as Mary was pretending it was. But as a woman who likes a little intrigue in her life, I decided to go ahead and hire Mary anyway, figuring that I would be able to suss her out a lot easier if she was working for me than if I just told her she hadn't got the job and wished her well for the future. With Mary working under my watchful eye in the office, I made sure to try and learn as much about her as I could, operating under the belief that she had a secret to hide and that she wasn't actually as meek and mild-mannered as she was making out to be. But other than daydreaming during meetings and being a very average admin worker at best, Mary didn't do anything to draw attention to herself or give away the fact that she might be more interesting than she appeared to be on the surface. So much so that I was almost starting to regret hiring her because I figured that lying on her CV and giving a dodgy reference might simply have just been because she needed a job rather than because she had other more fascinating reasons for doing it. But I was wrong. Mary did turn out to be fascinating. Or should I say the woman who Mary used to be? It was an average Friday afternoon about 4 months after I had hired Mary when she made the mistake that allowed me to find out who she really was. It was a very simple mistake, so much so that she hadn't even noticed that she had made it. But I noticed it, and when I did, I quickly realised that Mary was the most interesting person I had ever worked with. I was making the rounds of the office with a big book of raffle tickets that I was selling to raise money for my boss in the head office in London, who was running a marathon for his gravely ill son, when I stopped at Mary's desk and asked her if she wished to buy a ticket or two herself. She kindly purchased a strip of 5 and donated her money, and I thanked her before walking away to the next desk, thinking very little of it. It was only when I got back to my desk a little later on and examined my book of raffle tickets that I realised there was something unusual about it. There was a name in the book that I didn't recognise. Simone. I knew there were no employees in my office who went by that name, so that was rather odd. But somebody had used the name, so I set about trying to figure out who it was. I did that by recalling all the people whom I had sold a raffle ticket to that day, checking to see if their name was in the book as it should be. And when I did that little exercise, I realised that there was a name missing. Mary. Could she have been the one who had written Simone? It was easy to find that out because all I had to do then was check the handwriting on the raffle ticket with Mary's handwriting on her work. And when I did, I saw that the writing matched. Mary had called herself Simone. But why? People make mistakes all the time, but I don't know of anyone who has ever gotten their name wrong, especially not a woman in her late 30s, so I figured that Mary must have had a good reason for writing what she did. I figured it was her real name, and she had just slipped up, writing Simone instead of Mary. Once I knew that, I set about trying to find out who Simone was. That wasn't an easy task, considering that I didn't have a surname to go off, but I tried anyway, watching Mary even more closely as I did. My colleague still seemed to have no idea that she had accidentally used another name, so she didn't know that I was onto her. But I was, although that could never have prepared me for the shock when I did eventually discover who she really was. I found out when I was sitting at my desk one lunchtime, chewing on a bland salad and scrolling through the news on my phone, when I saw an article about the murder of Kieran Bancroft. His killer was still at large, although I already knew that, because the original news story had made headlines at the time when Kieran's body had been discovered and his killer had gone on the run. His killer, a woman called Simone, a woman who now worked in my office. Staring at the photo on my phone's screen that fateful lunchtime, I had been able to see that the wanted killer in the image did bear a resemblance to the woman I had hired a few months earlier. But it was only a passing resemblance, and no one would have really noticed it unless they had any reason to suspect that Mary was actually called Simone. As I did. I had struggled to contain the excitement inside myself as I had spent the next few days watching Mary like a hawk, studying her movements and mannerisms, her smiles and her frowns, seeing more and more that she could be the woman the police were looking for in a different part of the country. I know all my employees well, but I have never studied one like I studied Mary then. And by the time another week had passed, I was sure that Mary was actually Simone the man-killer, a very dangerous woman, who was now working for me under an assumed identity. That was thrilling. 1, because I had worked something out that no one else knew, and 2, because I could have some fun with that knowledge myself. Reading up on everything I could about Simone via the multitude of news articles online, I saw that she had been a woman who had specialised in helping other women get over cheating partners. She had a penchant for revenge, and she seemed to have been very good at what she did. So good that she had gotten away with murder. Or so she thought. But her presence in my life felt like a challenge to me, and as a woman who also has an appetite for risk, I decided to play my own game with Simone/Mary. I decided to lay a trap and see if she would fall right into it. The first thing I needed to do was get myself an assistant, and I knew just the man. He was a guy I had been seeing on and off over the years, not a boyfriend, but more like someone I could call whenever I felt like I wanted a little fun. That guy was James, and when I met him in a bar after sending him a flirty text about hooking up again, I told him that I wanted to play a game with somebody else. I told him about Mary, and while I withheld the part about her actually being a killer, I told him that she was not a good person and that she had played games with other people in her past. I also told James that I was willing to give him a little money if he would indulge me and play the game I was looking to play on my employee. It was easy enough to convince him, particularly after I had taken him back to my place and reminded him how much fun we have together when we're alone. And so the plan was set. I was going to set James and Simone up, and once they were serious, I was going to make it look like I was having an affair with James through a series of subtle hints and clues. Knowing Simone like I did from the news articles, I figured she wouldn't be able to resist investigating those clues, and when she discovered that she was being cheated on, I knew her appetite for revenge would come to the fore once again. But when it did, I would be one step ahead of her all the way. It was easier than I had expected to get Simone to go and talk to James in the bar that night that we had gone out for work drinks in, and James played his role extremely well, coming across as the polite gentleman who was able to take Simone out on several dates until they officially became an item. Once Simone was living with James, I figured things were serious enough that she would not react well to finding out James was cheating on her, so that was when I escalated the plan and started to leave clues. There were several suspicious text messages sent to James from myself under the guise of John, compliance, and while it took a while for Simone to see one of them, she asked James about it when she did. That let us know that she was curious, and with James doing his best to act shifty and start arranging several impromptu drinks with friends on a Friday night, I knew it wouldn't be long until Simone couldn't resist the urge to follow her partner and see if he was up to anything he shouldn't have been. She used to do that kind of thing for a job, after all. Sure enough, she was following him, and I knew that because James left a hidden camera in his front garden that was recording the front door whenever he went out. He captured Simone on there leaving the house shortly after he went out, and once we knew he was being followed, we knew we had her. I didn't know what Simone was going to do when it came to revenge, but I was prepared for everything, feeling exhilarated to be the target of a woman as deliciously intimidating as her. Using my own hidden cameras around my house, as well as in my office at work, I was able to see everything she was doing behind my back. I saw her put laxatives in my coffee. I saw her put the stolen charity money in my drawer. I saw her creeping around the back of my house before she surprised me with a knock on the door on a Friday night. And lastly, I knew she was going to come inside when James was there and catch us. Because I knew all those things, I was able to plan accordingly so that I didn't suffer from them as greatly as Simone would have hoped. I didn't drink the laxatives. only pretended to, running out of the meeting to fake needing the toilet, because that was what Simone would have expected to happen after she spiked my coffee. I have footage of her putting the stolen money in my drawer at work, so even though I have been suspended, I possess the necessary evidence to clear my name. So I was willing to let that play out without fear of actually losing my job in the long run. And because I always knew when Simone was outside my home, I was able to make sure I was prepared when she came in both times, firstly in the guise of wanting company on a Friday night, and secondly when she stormed in, thinking that she was catching James and I in the act. As for my partner in this entertaining con, he was also just as prepared for every eventuality as I was. Knowing that Simone would be looking to get back at him just as much as me, he was on his guard at all times. And that was how he knew something was wrong when Simone, or Mary as she was still pretending to be, surprisingly asked him out for a drink one weeknight. That was out of character for her, so James knew she was obviously planning something, and when she had offered to drive him so he could have a few drinks, he figured her plan must have involved something to do with him consuming alcohol. In order to stave off any threat there, James had spoken discreetly to the barman when he had entered the pub, and while Simone would have thought her boyfriend was just asking for the menus over by the bar, he was actually asking the barman to serve him non-alcoholic beer all night because he used to be an alcoholic but didn't want his new girlfriend to know. The barman very generously did as James had asked, so all those pints he drank that night in the pub were not at all at risk of putting him over the limit. Therefore, it was no issue when Simone suddenly fell ill and asked James to drive them home, nor was it a problem when the police pulled them over and demanded that the driver take a breathalyzer test. There could have been a problem then with James not being able to fake a false failed test, but he expertly got around that by denying the officers the chance to breathalyze him. This caused him to be arrested, making it look like he had failed the test all along, but really it had just been because he wasn't complying with their wishes. Best of all, Simone had not heard any of it, because as is standard procedure when police cars stop civilian vehicles, the officers on the scene had asked the driver's partner to stay inside the vehicle, so she was well out of earshot of James disagreeing with the police officers, and would have just assumed he had been caught for drink driving. Once James was at the station, all he had to do was give in and provide a breathalyzer sample, and when it came back clean, he was released with nothing more than a caution for wasting police time, as he knew he would be. But just to show him my thanks for that little performance, I made sure to let him know that he was welcome to come and visit me any time he wanted to, whenever he was in the mood in future. At that point, Simone would have thought she had been victorious. As far as she knew, she had cost both James and I our jobs, and so all that was left for her to do was to let us know that she had beaten us, and then be on her way. But when she came to my house, and just before she barged in, I had already called the police and told them that there was a murder suspect at my address. That ensured the officers were arriving on the scene to arrest Simone before she could leave and fully enjoy her moment of victory. Now she is behind bars, and mine and James's little game is at an end. We don't have to worry about getting in trouble for anything we did, because Simone has no evidence. Nor do we have to worry about her coming back at us for revenge now, because she is locked up behind bars for Kieran's murder, and she will stay there for a very long time. As for me, I already have my job back, after showing the footage of the charity money being illicitly placed in my drawer by someone else, so it's very much back to normal, and back to reality. My fun is over, at least for now anyway. Who knows? Maybe I'll find somebody else to have a little fun with. But I doubt I'll ever get as lucky as to have a runaway murderer turn up at my office for a job interview again. But I live in hope. Until then, I will just get on with my life, safe in the knowledge that I went toe-to-toe with a clever, manipulative woman, and I came out on top. Simone thought that I was messing with the wrong woman. She didn't know that I was worse than her. But I guess she does now. Epilogue. 6 months later. Prison isn't too bad, I suppose. Sure, I can't go wherever I want to go and do whatever I want to do now that I'm behind bars. But then again, I couldn't do those things when I was on the run either. Being Mary wasn't much fun for me, At least not until the end, anyway. But being Simone again gives me some sense of freedom back. I don't have to pretend anymore. I can finally be myself. And even though that means everybody knowing exactly who I am and what I have done in my past, it also means that I don't have to be fake. I'm Simone. I used to help women get revenge on cheating men. But these days, I'm just a convicted killer. It didn't take long for the arresting officers who put me in handcuffs at Clarissa's house to determine that I was the woman who was wanted for the murder of Kieran Bancroft. And once they did that, I knew I wasn't getting out of those handcuffs for a very long time. There's no chance of bail for someone who has proven they are willing to go on the run under an assumed identity. So I remained in custody until I was sentenced. Having pleaded guilty, I saved the need for a trial, although I'm not sure how much good that really did me in getting my potential sentence reduced, because I'd already wasted the better part of 2 years evading justice in the first place. But I was honest anyway, admitting what I had done, and accepting whatever the consequences of it may be. It would be easy to say that I didn't have much of a choice in the end, not after Clarissa and James had served me up to the police on a silver platter. But I still feel like I should take some credit for admitting the truth eventually. I did so not just to admit my crime, but to also explain the circumstances surrounding it, how I had done what I had done for Michelle, a woman who had taken her own life after Kieran had betrayed her so badly. It could have been argued that he took her life before I took his, and I certainly tried to make that argument in my hearing, but it seemed to fall on deaf ears. Nobody in the justice system cares about extenuating circumstances. They just see everything as black or white. I killed a man, therefore I am guilty and deserve to be punished. That's all there is to it. And punished I have been, because I have now been behind bars for half a year, and the best-case scenario for me is that I will be serving at least 15 more years before I stand a chance at getting out. I'll be in my 50s by then, and my good looks will likely have diminished somewhat, as will my appetite for vengeance on cheating partners, I suspect. I should probably use all this time I have now to start thinking about a career change, so that I'm somewhat prepared to live a more normal life when I eventually get out of here and have to start fending for myself again. There is a library in this prison, and I know there are some classes that get taught here where the inmates can look to better themselves and show signs of wanting to become a more upstanding member of society again one day. I have seen several of the female prisoners here attending those classes and studying in the library, so I guess I should try and do the same thing too, if only to fit in a little more around here. But the problem with that is that it feels very much like a Mary thing to do. Simone never cared about fitting in, she just cared about getting revenge. That's probably why I have spent most of the time in here so far thinking about the people who put me in here. There's no doubt that Clarissa and James beat me fair and square. As a woman with extensive experience in the art of setting traps for people, I have to admit that they got me good, and I never saw it coming until it was too late. I always knew my relationship with James was based on a lie. I just didn't realise it was his lie, not mine. And I also suspected that Clarissa wasn't particularly fond of me, although I had wrongly just put that down to her being my boss, rather than because she had figured out who I really was and fancied her chances of tricking me into proving it. But they blindsided me, playing their little game to perfection. And while the desire to get back at them might be tempting, I have to admit 2 things. 1, it wouldn't change the fact that I have to spend a large part of my life in prison now. And 2, I'm aware that I might not be able to get back at them even if I wanted to. They have both proven to be exceptionally clever, and so much so that I feel like I would be better served just leaving them in my past now, and not trying to antagonise them further. I thought I had caught them betraying me, and could do what I had always done, which was win. But I lost this time, and because I failed to quit while I was ahead, I guess I now have to just quit while I'm behind. I'm currently spending another long and boring day sitting in my cell and thinking about how I ended up here, when I see one of the prison wardens enter the room before they say 4 words that I haven't heard in all the time I have been inside. "You have a visitor." I have no idea who it could be, But I'm curious to find out, so I follow the warden out of the room and make my way through the prison wing, passing by a few of my fellow inmates as I go, none of whom I've become particularly close with since I have been locked away with them for 24 hours a day. I welcome any chance to break up my otherwise tedious routine in here, but as I reach the room where my visitor is apparently waiting for me, I still have no idea who it could be. Having cut all ties with my family and friends after going on the run over 2 years ago, very few of them have felt inclined to want to see me, now that I have popped back up again as a convicted killer. So the options of who could be waiting for me in this room seem small. Have I picked up some kind of fan or crazy stalker who has read about my story in the media and decided to come and pay me a visit? Do they want an autograph? Or could it be a journalist seeing potential in my notoriety and looking to get my side of the story to advance their own career? Neither of those options is appealing to me, but I might as well see who it is so that I can get this over with and get back to my lonely cell. But then I enter the visitor's room and see who is waiting for me, and it's not a crazy fan or a journalist. It's a former work colleague, but more importantly, it's also a friend. It's Kathy. I almost feel bad looking the sweet woman in the eyes as I take a seat opposite her at this table, where she has been patiently waiting for me. The warden stands by the wall a few feet away, not to eavesdrop on our conversation, but to make sure that neither of us do anything we shouldn't do. But I suspect that Kathy hasn't arranged this surprise meeting with me here today to try and smuggle me in some contraband, and I can't even see anything she might have baked for me either, which is a shame because for the first time ever, I could really do with one of her cakes. What she has come for is a mystery to me, or at least it is until she speaks. Then it all becomes very clear. "Is it true?" she asks me, her voice low, either because she doesn't want the warden to hear her, or because she is genuinely afraid of me and the things the media say I have done. "Did I kill him?" I ask, assuming that is what she wants to know. "Yeah, it's true." I shrug my shoulders to show that while I am guilty, I'm not exactly repentant for taking Kieran's life. I still maintain he was a bad man who deserved to die for what he made Michelle do to herself. "No, I'm not talking about Kieran," Kathy says unexpectedly. "I'm talking about the other stuff. How women used to pay you to catch their cheating partners. How you used to get revenge for them. Is that true?" "Yes, it is," I confirm, because that is no secret, and my admission of it is not going to make any difference to how much time I will have to serve in here. Why do you ask? Kathy takes a moment to answer me and glances at the prison warden before she leans forward over the table, reducing the gap between us, presumably so she can continue to speak very quietly, so only I can hear her. "I was right all along," she tells me, but I'm not quite sure what she's referring to until she reminds me of something I had forgotten about in all the chaos of the last 6 months. "Brian is cheating on me. He's having an affair." I instantly recall the sight of Kathy's husband kissing that woman outside the pub on the night I followed him. And while I had put his infidelity out of my mind, it's obvious that my old friend hadn't. "You caught him?" I ask her, because I know that I never told her what I had seen that night from my hiding place behind the bins. "Yeah, I followed him, and I saw him with her," she admits, and while it's surprising, I can't hide how impressed I am. But that's nothing compared to how I feel after she speaks again. "I was wondering," Kathy says, leaning forward even further and lowering her voice so that she is barely audible now. "Could you help me?" "Help you with what?" "With revenge." Kathy looks as though she can barely believe what she has just said to me, but I almost can't believe it either. Kathy, the sweet woman from my old workplace, who spends all her time baking cakes and chatting about what she watched on TV last night, is now asking me, a convicted murderer, if I can help her get her own back on her cheating husband. I'm shocked. I don't know what to say. That's why I don't say anything. Instead, I just smile. I smile because not even being in prison can stop me from doing what I do best.
This concludes The Wrong Woman by Daniel Hurst. Narrated by Deirdre Whelan. Copyright 2021 by Daniel Hurst. Production copyright 2022 by W.F. Howes Limited. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Daniel Hurst and was produced in the year 2022 by Tantor Media Incorporated, a division of Recorded Books which holds the copyright thereto. Please visit tantor.com for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks.